Time to manage those pennies now with Crystal Howell, as she helps us to do every Monday. Good morning, Crystal.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Cassandra's there, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're talking about allowances today, Crystal, as you help us to manage those few pennies that we have during COVID-19. Lead us into our discussion this morning.
Yes, we would have touched on allowances before and different forms of managing money for children, but we wanted to get more into detail for each one because, as we've emphasized before, we want to make sure that our children develop that foundation and have those good habits so that when they are adults, these aren't things that they now have to be learning or trying to get down pat. These are things that they can just roll with and hopefully keep these good habits into adulthood. So allowances has always been a hotly debated issue because persons have different viewpoints as to how it should be done and what kind of message it sends. So it's usually given as a payment for chores or as a money management tool. But for many persons, you might get an allowance just for doing chores or because you're going to school and you expect your children to be able to purchase certain things, you would give them an allowance. So we want persons to think about what kind of message you're sending whenever you give out this allowance. And you also want to look at consistency. Are you going to try to get the child to understand that when they give a particular set of value in terms of the work that they do, will they get an allowance? What happens if they do extra chores? Will they get an extra allowance? Because you want them to be able to associate work with reward if that is the message that you're trying to send, and not that if they sweep the house but they do it in a half-hearted manner, they're going to get the same allowance as if they went the extra mile and also swept some cobwebs and that kind of thing. So you have to think about the messages that you're giving whenever you engage in a particular form of fiscal responsibility for your young ones. And just to emphasize, there is no right or wrong answer. Unfortunately, children don't come with a manual. So you're going to have to kind of feel out how your child is responding to certain stimuli so that you will be able to say, okay, I don't think my child is picking up the message that I would like them to get. So let me see if I can change this and if it will help them to be able to better understand the message that I am trying to teach.
How do you manage changing allowance as the child's age change if you do decide to give an allowance?
That's one thing that's been discussed heavily as well. I think it needs to come with them understanding why the increase has happened. So for a young child, if you know the only thing they're going to use the allowance for is for snacks, then you would explain to them this is the purpose. You're going to either give them per day or per week. Some people might start off per week because they want their child to understand that they have to budget for an entire week. And then you have a child who does that. They take out a little bit every day, and by the end of the week, they might even have some still left back. Some children might spend the entire amount on the first day. So you, again, as I said, you want to be able to modify so they understand this is why you have to be able to budget each day. You give them maybe each day until they learn to be able to do it on their own. And as they get older and you give them more responsibilities, you might say, okay, now you have to catch the bus. So this is why I'm giving you an additional allowance. This is what I expect you to do with the allowance, because if you run out, what are the consequences going to be if you don't manage that money properly? So discussions, explanations, don't just give it to the child and expect them to know what to do. Always make sure you have that conversation, and don't expect to have the conversation once. We as adults need to have conversations repeated to us constantly. So don't feel frustrated if you need to have that discussion with your child periodically and remind them and get it drilled into their head. It fits. And the earlier you do it, the better, because the younger ones soak up this information and these habits a lot better than us older ones, to be honest. So the earlier you can get that the better.
Yeah, we understand that it will be a work in progress for sure, but parents, just keep at it. It's all about keeping at it, and it will work out for the better for that child, especially when they're trying to manage those pennies when they finally reach adulthood. Crystal, a big thank you to you. Always a pleasure to have you on. You keep staying safe. You're looking good indoors.
Thank you. Enjoy your
Thank
day
you
as
very
well.
much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.